Hello everyone, I'm Exodia, and today we have a new episode in our Roblox Scripting Advanced Series tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about CFrames and how we can use them in our game. Now I know recently I made that tutorial on the placement system, part 1, part 2 coming out on Friday by the way, and we did use CFrames and manipulated CFrames in that video. So I think it's, while I would have liked to push a CFrame tutorial out before that, now we're here and we're going to be doing that. So there is quite a bit to digest when we're talking about CFrames, and they can be a bit confusing, so I will link some reference source that you can use provided by Roblox that you can look at and read about if you want to get a better understanding of them. But to start off, all we need to know about CFrames for the most part is that they are a data type that holds both an object's position and rotation. Now, if we were to make a new part in our workspace, we could do whatever we want to it. Set its position however we'd like, 0, 10, 0 will do for now. So basically what that rotation part is, if you're ever looking in your objects properties in the properties tab, there's this rotation value, and if we go to the rotate tool and we rotate the part, that orientation gets incremented. That's basically what we'll be using CFrame to adjust, as well as position. It can adjust both object rotation and position. So let's make a script inside of this, and real quick what we'll do is make a variable for the part. The part equals workspace dot part, and then we will print part dot CFrame. Then what we could do is, instead of having to enter the place, we can click on this drop down in the test section and click on run, and that'll just run all the code in the game instead of loading the player. And you'll see quite a bit of numbers that might be a little bit hard to digest. There's quite a bit. Now, CFrames do work with radians for angles, so if you've not taken a trigonometry class, then that will be a bit confusing to understand, as it works with radians and sine, cosine, and tangent. So don't be worried about understanding that. The main thing that we need to know is that the first three numbers here are the object position. So we have here 0, 10, should be 0, but the main thing is that our position is held in here, as well as the rotation, but that's in terms of radians in our, if you're familiar with it with trigonometry. It could be a little hard to understand, so that's why the main thing that we get from that is our position as the first three values. But anyways, we can manipulate CFrame with our scripts. So if we go back into this script, we can, which I will retitle CFrame tutorial, just to be a bit organized. So what we could do here is that we can make a new CFrame for a part. So we'll do local new CFrame equals CFrame.new. And when we make a new CFrame as a variable, we have to include a vector3 value as our object position inside of a CFrame. So it would be CFrame.new, vector3.new, and then we can do 0 or 5, no, we'll do 0, 5, 0. And then if we want to make a new angle for our part, then we'll have to use something called CFrame.angles. So we'll do local new angle equals CFrame.angles. And now the main thing that you could see is angles, and from Euler angles XYZ and from Euler angles YXZ. These are basically the same thing as CFrame.angles. They'll hold the angle position in terms of radians. Once again, we're hearing that term radians, but they'll hold the position there. It's just that the difference is that this one has it in order of Y coming first, X coming second, and Z coming third in the positions. They're both the same as CFrame.angles, so we only have reason to use CFrame.angles when we're editing a part's angle. So we'll do CFrame.angles, and like I said, I kept mentioning that term radians. Now, and you see Rx, Ry, and Rz as our three parameter numbers. This is because we have to get the degree in terms of radians. Now, radians are a way of saying kind of like a rotation degree angle in terms of pi. So what we'll do here is, luckily Roblox's built-in math database has something that we can use called math.rad. what this will do is it'll convert degrees into radians for us. So we can write any degree value we want here. So we can do 120, math.rad, we'll do 90, and then math.rad 180. And so what we got to do is we're going to set our part.CFrame equals new CFrame, and then to add the angles in, because if we were to just set the CFrame, for example, if we just run this, our part will move to the new CFrame without any issue. However, if we were to just set the part CFrame to the new angle, what's going to happen is our part should get reset back to position 0, 0, 0 on all three axes. The angles resets it because the position is not known in the angle, just the rotation that we're given the new part. So what we got to do is to be able to have both the angle and rotation, or angle and position factor into how we reposition the part, is we got to write new CFrame, and then we write multiplied by new angle. Now basically, while this is a bit misleading, as we see the asterisk and we'll first think about maybe why would we be multiplying the CFrame position and CFrame angle, in reality all this is doing is just adding the rotation to our position. So if we were to test this, then we're moving down to 0, 5, 0, and then we're keeping the rotation that we're setting. So there, we'll keep the position and it won't get reset to 0, and then also, another thing that we need to know about CFrames is that if we wanted to also, say we wanted to add a position to our part, so part.CFrame equals new CFrame, or we'll make a whole new CFrame, CFrame.new, or actually, instead we'll do part.CFrame equals part.CFrame. And then if you want to add a vector position, because as we know, a vector is a local new vector equals vector3.new. And then as we know, a vector3 is already a base position of an object. That's the data type. It stores the position of an object in x, y, and z value. So we can do 2.5, 7.5, and then we'll do 5. And so what we can do is we can add this position to our part's CFrame. And what will happen is we could put a weight 1 here. What should happen is that that vector is going to get added to our part. As you can see, that happened. Our position is now 2.5, 12.5, and then 5, because we first set our part's CFrame to have the position of 0, 5, 0, and then we're adding 7.5 on the y-axis. So as you can see, that's how we can both adjust the angle of our CFrame as well as the position of our CFrame. And that's pretty much the majority of what we need to know for CFrames. CFrames are going to be widely used throughout your time developing. I guarantee whenever you're making your game, you're going to be using these. So it's pretty important that you learn these. And if this is still a bit confusing, I will have a link to the to like a developer page that Roblox has provided themselves. Otherwise, on that note, if you thought the video was helpful, feel free to subscribe and like the video. If you have any critiques or confusions, please leave it down below in the comments, as I will attend to every one that's left down below. So anyways, Friday we will have part 2 to our placement system, as we're going to add some more depth to it to make it more than just simply clicking on a button and then placing a part on our mouse position. We're going to add a bit more that we can use. Maybe you want to add a price requirement to place a tower for a tower defense game. But anyways, this is our video on CFrames. So yeah, see ya.